Hello and welcome to another episode of the Premier League podcast with myself, Doc, and tonight we have Ash with us. Welcome, Ash.
Hello, Big Pete. How you doing? How you doing, Doc?
What's happening?
So tonight we're going to touch on no better place to start than the Etihad. In my eyes, there's a lot going on up there yesterday. Ash, what did you make of Arsenal's performance? Obviously, they tried to hang on to it, but obviously City scored in the 97th minute. What did you make of Arsenal's performance, mate?
Well, I don't know. I thought defensively with 10 men, they put in a good show, didn't they? And they obviously nullified City to a certain degree in the second half with 10 men. But obviously, in the end, really, it was just, and City probably I'd probably say it was deserved draw in the end, considering. But no, honestly, Arsenal, they can take good sort of stead out of that performance in terms of a defensive performance, but obviously they probably would have gone on to win bar the red card, but yeah, I thought it was a decent performance.
Doc, what about yourself, mate?
First and foremost, it was very, very refreshing to see a Mikel Arteta Arsenal team go to the Etihad and actually try and win the game. That's something that I don't think we've seen under Arteta before. I think this is a fixture where he's feared City to a degree, and he's ultimately gone there with this assumption of maybe where, like some Arsenal fans have said to me previously, maybe it's not the case that he plays for a draw, but he definitely plays to not lose. Whereas this game, I think that the gloves was off a little bit. I think he actually went there with a trust in his team that they could get the job done, and ultimately in the first half they did do that. I thought it was a very good performance from Arsenal overall. I think the first half was a very good performance from Arsenal. I also do feel like Arsenal Football Club, especially the fan base, need to start understanding that their players' errors are costing their team points. And if I was a fan of that football club and one of my players done that, I would have something to say about it, especially a couple of weeks after one of your other players have done so. With the absence of Odegaard, you cannot keep affording to lose the players that you want to help carry the team in his absence to petty disciplinary issues. And, I think that, like I said, Arsenal should have learnt their lesson. But performance-wise, I thought they were tremendous. I thought they were very, very good. And I think they went toe-to-toe with City. There is one thing I want to hear your point of view first, P. And then there is one thing, because I've managed to just watch it back again in the gym. And there is one thing that I didn't pick up on the time that I do want to talk to you about. But you go first, and then we'll touch on my bit.
I thought Arsenal played well, mate, to be honest. I agree with you with the red card. I think, again, they haven't learnt their lesson from the Brighton game, which is sad to see, because you think once one player's done it, you don't expect to see someone else do exactly the same 2 weeks later. And ultimately, that red card let them down because City thought Arsenal were the better side. Take away the first 10 minutes of the first half when City scored, I thought Arsenal were the better side for the rest of the game. Then they got the red card, went into half time, and with it being so close to half time, I just let them down a little bit, you know what I mean? And then they have to come out. They lose Saka at half time because he goes defensive, which he has to. He's got no choice, by the way. He goes defensive. He takes Saka off, brings Ben White on, goes 5 at the back, and yeah, they defended brilliantly. Defended brilliantly, but could I see City always getting an equaliser? I could. It was inevitably. It was a matter of when they got the equaliser and not if. But ultimately, it's still a good point up there for Arsenal, I think, especially with it's only 5 games in. It's not as if it's the last 5 games; it's the first 5 games this time. So I think it'd be a good point for them. But yeah, they need to learn their lessons and learn them quickly.
So with regards to the good point, I totally agree. My only concern is not the 1 point that's a good point that they've gained, is the 4 points that their disciplinary issues has cost them. Bearing in mind this is a team that runs City so close last year with 2 points, you really can't afford to be chucking 4 points away the way that they have. So I totally agree. It is a very good point, and it was a well-earned point You know, they earned it the right way by trying to get the 3 points. And the fact that City are happy with the point tells me everything I need to know with the Arsenal performance. But the one thing I did want to bring up, talk to me about Arsenal's second goal. Because for me personally, if you watch it again, if that goal's disallowed with a foul on the goalkeeper, I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Second goal's the header, isn't it?
Yeah, so from the corner, Arsenal do what Arsenal do best. They've got two players in front of the goalkeeper, and I'm pretty sure it's Havertz. Havertz basically sort of backs into him a little bit, and he basically blocks him a little bit. And ultimately, Ederson goes down, and he does appeal for it. But for me personally, we've seen goals disallowed in that situation for a lot less. So if that goal was disallowed, and I think maybe you're going to speak now quite freely, but I think when you watch it again, I think you'll understand where I'm coming from.
I do know what you're on about, and I don't think it's a foul. I'm not a part of this goalkeepers union. I think goalkeepers tend to throw themselves to the floor at the slightest flick they get. I just think it was a well-worked corner by Arsenal, and they knew what they were doing, every single one of them, to allow Gabriel to get the run and the jump to score the goal. I think it's harsh if you rule that out for a little back in, because if you're going to do that, you might as well give a penalty every time it happens as well. Do you know what I mean? I think the referee's used his common sense there. And it's not often we say that about referees, but I do generally think he's used his common sense there.
Listen, I'm not suggesting for a second that I want to see them goals disallowed. I just wanted to see your thoughts on the fact that there has been weaker ones disallowed.
Yeah.
And like you said, you call it a well-worked one, but that's the concept. I believe they knew what they were doing, and they've literally put a blocker up, ultimately they've got away with it. So fair play. Arsenal are becoming set piece specialists, aren't they? Let's be honest. They're scoring a lot of goals. Gabriel is becoming a right force in the box, and Saka's delivery is on point from there. So,
I think Gabriel's got more goals than anyone in our side at the minute. Don't laugh, Ash. What are you laughing at? It's true. He's got 3. He's got 2. So, is what it is, isn't it? But, yeah, I think it's a good point for Arsenal. One thing I do want to touch on, obviously, it's broken in the last hour and a half, is that Rodri is out for the rest of the season with an ACL injury. What do we make of that? Do you think it opens the door for a Liverpool or an Arsenal to go win the league now? City are missing their main talisman, or do you think City have enough to still sort of get over the line? I know we're only 5 games in, but City do depend a lot on Rodri, don't they? Ash, let's start with you on that one, mate.
I think if you're going to compare seasons from before, they've had De Bruyne out injured, they've had Haaland out injured for a period of time, and they've still managed to pick up points and go on to win the league in the same year. Yeah, don't get me wrong, it's going to be a big loss, but I think they've got the players there to not replace him, but just cover the time that he's going to be out. It's going to be a huge loss in them big games, the Champions League games, and of course, the big games where they come up against the likes of Arsenal, Liverpool, and even probably Chelsea, considering how clutch he's been for them against the likes of Chelsea in the last few games, especially last year. But I think it'll be okay without him, but you'll definitely see, obviously, his loss in the midfield in terms of the way he sort of breaks the lines and dictates the play. City might be a little bit more vulnerable in midfield, but I think they'll still outscore most teams.
Yeah. Doc, what do you make of Rodri? And obviously he's out for the season.
Well, first and foremost, let's hope he has a speedy recovery and he comes back the player that he once was, because from a fellow player that's had the same injury, many players come back and they just lose a little bit of pace. They lose a little bit of fear factor with regards to going into tackle. So first and foremost, like I said, let's hope it's a speedy recovery, it's a quick recovery, and he comes back the player that he was. The one thing I would say is the door is open, and I don't want to hear excuses now. If you don't win the league this year, any of you teams don't win the league this year, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want to hear your waffle. At the end of the day, there's no Rodri there. They've got one striker on the books. So if Haaland gets injured, it's the same. Foden's hardly played this season. Kevin De Bruyne is out injured already. I don't want to hear it. So I think that it's there for the taking now. I think if you wanted a confidence boost, that's a confidence boost, isn't it? Knowing that he's not going to be there anymore, and you're not going to face him anymore this season. So, like I said, I don't want to hear any excuses, but ultimately, I don't think it matters. I think City still get the job done, mate.
Doc, from a Palace perspective, and I don't want you to have your Palace hat on here, but from a Palace perspective, obviously now Rodri's out for the season. Last summer, I think you know where I'm going with this. City were linked to Adam Walton. Do you think that bid could come a bit earlier now? That if it does come, do you think that bid could come earlier now that Rodri's out for the season? Because they're going to need to replace him.
Well, do you want me to say something on a level that you probably wasn't expecting?
Go on.
If they come in for him at the moment with the season that he's having so far this season, I'd take the money and I wouldn't give a monkeys, mate. You can have him. Take him. Because to be honest, he's not been at the races at all this season. He's been very, very off the pace. And ultimately, he's been taken off in games and he hasn't really performed in the games that he's been on. So, I don't want to see Walton go. I don't, because I know what the player, the capabilities that he's got. But ultimately, if you're giving me a scenario now in January, well, the only problem we've got is the Corre's out for 3 or 4 months now. This is the other blow. But if the Corre was fit and we had Lerma in there, then so be it. It's big profit, isn't it? Let's be honest. Big profit. 22 million is going to cost us. In fact, he wouldn't have even cost us 22 million. If they buy him in January, it would have cost us 18 million because he won't trigger the add-ons. So 18 million, there's no way you're getting him for less than 50. So game on. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think Walton goes into that City's team and can do what Rodri can do right now. I think he's shown that in the Palace shirt this season.
I don't think anyone can go in that City team and do what Rodri does.
No, they can't. They can't. But what I'm saying is Walton's not ready for that big move right now. He's shown that in the Palace shirt this season.
Well, what about we spoke about earlier on TikTok, Bruno Guimaraes or something? Like, could Newcastle expect a bid? Do you reckon, or do you think City will just plough through with what they got?
I think City will be active in the transfer window anyway. I think that they ultimately will be trying to bring in another striker before this, because they obviously lost their striker quite late on in the window. I think that might change now. They might need to reassess that. Funny enough, there is links with Eze going to Manchester City as well. Well, now that could be hampered a little bit because, like I said, Rodri is the biggest concern right now. So, I mean, will they be in the market? I'm sure they will. Who will they get? I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if they went and got the player that Liverpool wanted that didn't get.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Which brings me on nicely to our next topic. Let's go down a little bit and across, and we head to Anfield, where Liverpool looked absolutely devastating, and they won their game 3-0. Goals from Diaz and Darwin. Do you think Liverpool look better now than what they did last year, Ash, or do you think it's just a good run of form? They could hit a blip somewhere. What are you making of Liverpool so far this season, and obviously their results Saturday?
Yeah, I think with Liverpool right now, I wouldn't say it's sort of the time where. Obviously, I think Klopp was sometimes stuck in his ways with Liverpool, whereas they've got a manager who's sort of got no fear right now. He's come straight into the league, and obviously they've had periods in games where they've been vulnerable, but overall they've looked very good. And I think Forest potentially just a blip, but I like what I see, especially from players like Diaz as well, who's been pretty devastating so far this season, considering how poor form he's been in over the last year or so, and the start he's had to the season, incredible, considering he's been on a Copa America as well. And even, obviously, he's just got his first minutes fully in the league in the last game. But I think Darwin Núñez as well deserves a bit of credit, considering he is a very good player. And, everybody sort of gives him a little bit of slander for his finishing, but he does everything correct. He's that player that will, come to the lines, literally, thread balls through to his teammates, create chances for others. It's just his own ability in front of goal which lets him down. But Again, he took his finish very nicely as well. But no, I think honestly, I think Liverpool will have a good year. Just think I'm not so sure about the so-called big games, the games like City, maybe even Spurs away. About that midfield, to me, the midfield is still a little bit shaky from what I've seen. But I think they've looked good going forward, and especially defensively, conceding just one goal this season, so you can't knock them.
Yeah, Doc, what you made of Liverpool so far this year? I know we touched on it earlier privately, but what do you think of Liverpool this year?
I've been very impressed with Liverpool. I think that with Arne Slot, I think, listen, it's still early days with Liverpool, right? So we can't sit here and say we were right or we were wrong, and no one can. But the one thing I would say is they don't look like a team that's just changed their manager. They don't look like a team that's just got a manager that's come in that's trying to suss out a lead. They look like they've got a manager there that's been there a couple of years, knows and understands the philosophy of the club, has got them playing the way that he wants them to play. And I would go as far as to say 5 games in, they look better this year than they did last year. And when people say to me, yeah, but they haven't played any of the top sides yet, and also they lost to Forest, I just want to rewind a little bit. Now, it might not have been in the first 5 games, but Liverpool last season, when they were top of the tree come Christmas, I can name 4 games where Liverpool were outplayed in the game and ultimately scored late on in the game to win the game, and that ultimately put the points on the board. I can't think of a game where Liverpool have been outplayed yet. They've been clinical, they've been convincing, and they've got the job done. And ultimately, the team performances have been better this year so far than I've seen Liverpool in a long while. Like, they look convincing. And again, agreed. Forest was a blip. Forest was a blip. Didn't see it coming. I just hope it don't cost them in the long run. But ultimately, I do think it is a blip. And like I said, I'm hoping I'm wrong, because everything I predicted was Liverpool would struggle a little bit and Slot would be found out a little bit. So I'm hoping my original predictions come true. But in reality, I've been very impressed with them. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, even in JG. Yeah, and I think even the game they lost, mate, they were still the better side. As I said earlier, they had like 30 shots on goal that day. I know they didn't score, but it's still
to
have that many shots and not. But yeah, it is what it is, and yeah, Liverpool do look really good at the moment. And I think Arsenal fans need to be looking over their shoulder at Liverpool and looking forward to Man City, if I'm honest. But yeah, that's another subject for another day. But
the one player I do want to give sorry, Pete. The one player I do want to give a special mention to is Diaz. Looks unplayable right now.
Yeah,
he really does look unplayable now. Like, I was a big believer of his dad spoke out and his dream is to play for Barcelona and he wants to go to Spain. I actually anticipated him going out the door to free up funds for Slot to invest. They've not only kept him, but they've kept him happy. They've obviously, they're playing him in a slightly different role. But boy, is it paying off right now, because that guy, if he carries on with the form that he is, you're talking to the player of the year. He's the one standout player for me this season so far, and he's doing everything right. I know Ash touched on Núñez, and Núñez, yes, great finish. Won't take anything away from him, but this is the same guy that struggles to get minutes under Slot. That's the difference here. This is a player that scored quite a few goals for Liverpool. Obviously missed, 16 times he hit the post last year, so he could have ultimately scored 16 more goals with a couple of centimetres the other way. And yet he's struggling to get game time now. So it's going to be interesting for Liverpool. But the only thing I would say is don't get carried away. Don't start believing that you're going to win the league, etc. The top 4, I think, is certainly in your hands. I think realistically, anything out of the top 4 is not good enough now, especially now you've seen what Slot's all about. You've got to be aiming for top 4. And I agree with you. I actually think Liverpool will run Arsenal closer than Arsenal will run City closer.
Yeah, I do. And the next team to visit Anfield will be West Ham on Wednesday night. So, yeah.
Where would that leave Arsenal? Where would that leave Arsenal? If Arne Slot comes in his first season in charge, right, and bearing in mind the big concept is to progress that Arteta's doing, and obviously, allegedly Arsenal are closer to winning the title. If Liverpool get second spot, City win the league, and Arteta comes third, are we still trusting the process? Can we still accept that they're going in the right direction, or does that just completely and utterly put a spanner in the works at Arsenal?
I generally still think if they finish second and don't win nothing, it puts a spanner in the works anyway. So for me, if Liverpool end up pipping them to second or even first, and Arsenal finish third, you have to ask questions of Arteta and this project that they're still on 6 years in. It's the longest project I've known. I've seen blocks of flats built quicker than that. Do you know what I mean? So it's the longest project I've seen, and yeah, certainly you've got to be asking questions if that's the case. Ash, what do you make of that one?
Sorry, Mr. Coleman, what do you say? Because you froze my side then.
Doc's question was if Liverpool finish second and Arsenal finish third, are you still trusting the process if you're an Arsenal fan?
I think it's time he needs to start delivering on this promise that he would take Arsenal back to where they were. Can you name me like a manager in the league that gets this much time to deliver a title? Yeah, he's run City close the last 2 years. Could happen again this year, but for me, it's time, to start delivering as the manager of Arsenal now. You've changed the philosophy, you've changed, the way they were playing, you've got rid of the dead wood. You've got great players, great individual players, they play well as a team. But yeah, it's time to start delivering now. And, if you don't deliver, I personally think he will walk because he's taken this team as far as he can take them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What's your take on that comment from JG? Free hit for slot this season, though.
I don't know if it's a free hit. What I will say is he would get away with a lot more this year than what he would any other year. But I still
pressure
think
is off slightly, isn't it? The pressure is off slightly.
I still think they expect a top 4 finish, though, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
but yeah,
the pressure is off slightly, and I understand the concept of the comment. But that being said, I would even go as far as to say that, like, if Arne Slot delivers second spot at Liverpool this season, do you actually think Klopp would have done any better with his team? You know what I mean? And I'm not suggesting that you can compare the two, but the bottom line is apart from the fact that this is Klopp's squad still, because ultimately he's only signed one new player, that makes it worse, not better, in my opinion. Because the fact is he's not brought anyone in that's helped him do it. He's had to inherit Klopp's team and change Klopp's team's philosophy. So for me, that's harder than if he ultimately sold 6 or 7 of them and brought in 6 or 7 faces, or brought in familiar faces with players that have played with him before, a bit like what certain Ten Hag has done at Man United. So yeah, like I said, I think it improves his performance.
Yeah, heading down to the capital now. We have a Crystal Palace Man United stalemate. Doc, what did you make of Palace's performance, mate? Obviously, United probably could have been out of sight by half time, but Palace seemed to come back into their own in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that it was a particularly good first half for Crystal Palace. But that being said, Crystal Palace Football Club has been built. We've built our foundations on doing exactly what we've done. Keeping it tight, trying to frustrate your opponent, trying to get to half-time still in the game. And ultimately, that's exactly what we've done, with a big help from Henderson. But when it's all said and done, the one thing I would say about Palace is under Glasner, he's one manager that watches a game and adapts to the game scenario, not the squad and not anything else, not the team that he's playing against, just the performance that the team he's playing against is doing. And yet again, you see it at Stamford Bridge, where he ultimately made a change at half-time when we were dominated in that game, and it turned the game around and we outplayed Chelsea in the second half. And I believe we've done it again against United. We took Mateta off, we took Walton off, 2 bold statements that I would never have anticipated to happen. And yet that injection that he's brought in and that vision that he's got has turned the game on its head. And we were the better team in the second half. But the point's a great point. I'll take the point all day long.
Yeah. Ash, what did you make of the game, mate?
I thought from what I've seen in the first half, we should have been out of sight from sort of what I caught up on. I think maybe not harshly, but I think it's the first time where I've probably seen where Ten Hag's actually got it right. Considering that normally, we've gone into games. I probably was questioning the lineup at first, but then as the game's gone from minute 1 to half time, it's probably one of the best performances I've seen from a Ten Hag personally. I think that the substitutions that we made, and obviously the substitutions that Palace made, swung the game in the opposite way. We, took off our more sort of player with the most influence in terms of playing between the lines and linking the play between the rest of the team. But obviously Palace's substitutions made the difference, and they came on and, arguably played better on us in the second half. And, I think probably fitting that the game ended in a draw, but I think we both missed big chances. But obviously I think we missed a lot of big chances where we should be scoring.
I think that's a bold statement, though, to say that he got it right. And the reason why I say that with such confidence is Garnacho, to me, is a key player in everything that Man United want to do and everything that's been good under Ten Hag. Now, Garnacho has ultimately lost his spot in the starting lineup leading up to this game. He plays in the league game, in the cup. Sorry, he scores a couple of goals, which gets him into the starting team. I totally agree with that. But then he takes Rashford off. The Rashford that everyone's screaming to get a bit of form, show a bit of the old Rashford. He scored 3 goals in 2 games, and then he leaves Rashford on the bench for Ahmad, is it?
Yeah.
So for me personally, I would question whether Ten Hag got it right, and I would say personally, on form in the games before, Garnacho should have been on the right and Rashford would have been on the left, and I think that would have been a bit more of a threat. It's ironic to say more of a threat, but the reason why I say more of a threat is none of it really come through Ahmad. He didn't really do much.
No, I think the thing is, based on sort of the performances from our wingers this season, he's, take out 2 games between probably Rashford and Garnacho, and I think Ahmad's been sort of our most influential winger this season in terms of getting down the byline, especially creating chances. Outside of Rashford, he is our second most creative player this season in terms of creating chances for his teammates. So I see the reason why he was there. Yeah, he may not have had a good game, but I can see why he's there. Whereas, yeah, Rashford and Garnacho did both score against Barnsley, but it's a case of one's going to be dropped and the other one's going to remain. And I know as well with the rotation of the squad as well, Rashford's pretty much started every league game this season, whereas Garnacho hasn't started any. So I can see sort of why he swapped them, but yeah.
Fair enough. Doc, does it worry you that Palace still haven't got a win on the board?
Cool.
No. Mm-hmm. Obviously, firing all cylinders in the Carabao Cup and struggling to find a bit of form in the league. Just wondered if it sort of worried you that you was a part of that 6 that haven't won a game yet.
No, because at the end of the day, it's all well and good saying like the games that we haven't won, but we've ultimately taken a point at Stamford Bridge, which is no easy, not an easy thing to do. We've now taken a point against Manchester United. We've taken a point against Leicester, which, isn't ideal, but it's still a point. When you're playing a club like that, that's a game that they're going to look at where they're going to think that they can take the points against you. We got beat at Brentford, which we all know that story. I don't need to badger on about that. A goal disallowed wrongfully. The referee apologises and the outcome would have been different. And then a 4-minute spell against you where you scored 2 goals. So I just think that the concept of Palace, I think it's a little bit misleading at the moment, personally. I mean, are we firing on all cylinders? No, we're not. But is there anything to worry about? not for me. I think Glasner is a manager that knows what he's got, knows what he's doing. You can see the progression every single week, and the wins will come soon. I mean, I'm not concerned about it at all. And we've got Everton next, so
Big relegation as well with that one, isn't it? 6 pointer there. We'll go across to the east end of London now, where Chelsea visited the Olympic Stadium and took all 3 points and scored 3 goals. And Jackson come out of there looking like prime Pele. But Doc, what did you make of Chelsea's performance, mate? What did you make? West Ham shoddy defending.
Yeah, I was going to say, listen, I think Chelsea are a mixed bag, and sometimes Chelsea can turn up and put a performance of a lifetime in, and other times they can turn up and get beaten by a lower opposition team. But with Chelsea right now, like I say, you don't know what to expect of them. 1 week they will have a good week, next they'll have a good week. But yeah, I think Maresca's, to be honest, has installed a lot of confidence in players like Jackson, especially because you can see he sort of spearheaded Chelsea's attack pretty much early on this season, from the first game in the league season up until now. And to me, he's probably been one of Chelsea's most improved players alongside Caicedo as well, and especially Caicedo. But considering last year, his performances, at the start of the year were quite concerning, but he massively improved. And I think, he had I think he's probably the standout player in that performance against West Ham, Caicedo. But no, I think, like I say, I'm not so sure on Maresca in terms of when it comes to the big games coming up to the teams that are going to be challenging for the league. But against the lower oppositions, I'm pretty sure he'll get it right, to be honest. I've been quite impressed so far at points with Chelsea.
Yeah, it weren't great. Doc, what did you make of the game, Chelsea-West Ham weekend?
I thought personally, Chelsea looked quite convincing. I think that they looked quite clinical. I think Chelsea got their game plan spot on. But I also think that West Ham were quite poor. And I think that West Ham made it easy for Chelsea. I think that it was one of them games where I didn't feel like it was watching a West Ham team that I'm used to watching, if I'm totally honest. I still feel like it hasn't clicked at West Ham. And yeah, I generally think that, yes, you've got to give managers time. Yes, you've got to let these players embed in. But this was my concern with the conversations that we had before, with the West Ham fan base sort of implying that, top 6 Europe. I just thought, yes, maybe this guy can deliver that long term, but it won't be this year because, like I said to you before, and I'll say it again, if you didn't know who was in charge, you still think David Moyes is in charge because nothing has changed. And certainly not on the pitch.
Yeah, Tom. Question to Big P. Can you see new identity from the new manager? And that is a no, mate. I can't. We look all right going forward. But defensively, mate, we are hopeless. And I mean, we are shocking. And it worries me a little bit. It really does, because I think he has to take 4 points out of our next 2 games, which is Brentford and Ipswich. And if he doesn't, he's going to come under a lot of pressure very, very quickly.
The most ironic thing is when you talk about West Ham, and I know it's obviously if, buts, and maybes, but if Palace would have beaten you, think of the predicament you'd be in right now.
Yeah, but as you just said, it's if, buts, and maybes. We wrote out winners in that one, thank God. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It could be in a bad way. I think I'm generally a bit concerned. I thought our performance going forward Saturday was all right. I thought we looked all right. We should have had a penalty. We wasn't given. Kudos, his goal was offside. Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with that. But defensively, we look at absolute shambles. And we will beat teams 4-5-0 this season, playing like that going forward. But we will also get beat 4-5-0
won't.
when we play
You
bigger
won't.
sides.
You will not.
We'll beat the smaller teams 4-5-0, 100%, because we're that good going forward. But defensively, we're not good enough.
I'll tell you what, as you know, we don't currently have a sportsman bet on, because we cancelled it. I am now going to put you on the spot and put another sportsman bet on that you do not win not one game this year, 4 or 5-0. And I'll give you both.
All right, cool. Let's go for it.
Because I don't think you look like a team that is capable of being that solid at the back to keep the clean sheet while scoring 4 or 5. I think all the while you're going forward, you look fragile at the back. So 4-1s maybe, 4-2s possibly, but 4-0s, 5-0s, I don't know who you think you are, mate. You're not a prime Brazil.
I generally think we'll beat like a Southampton or someone like that. I'm not, but against the bigger clubs like your Man Cities, your Arsenals, your Chelseas, your Liverpools, I'd put even Man United in there. We'll get punished. Anyone that can take their chances will punish us at the moment. And he's got some serious work to do with that back four or back five, whatever he's going to play. And that's my honest opinion. 4 points. We got Liverpool Wednesday night. We'll see what sort of side he puts out there. I'd expect it to be a strong side, but then I'd rather him prepare for Saturday, to be honest. Yeah, just not worry about the Carabao Cup and just.
Who have you got Saturday?
Brentford away, and we haven't got the best of records at Brentford either. So it's like picking a bogey and flicking it and just opening it. Brentford don't score, but again, Brentford look vulnerable at Spurs. They didn't look that great at Spurs. They look vulnerable at the back. So who knows?
No, listen, we like I said, we gave them a good game at their gaff, and as far as I'm concerned, with the goal that we scored, they're certainly there for the taking. But then Brentford are a team that will punish you as well. Like, so it'll be a good game actually. I think it will be quite a level playing field. I think it will be a good game. But I've got a question for you. 3 home defeats on the bounce. You're a season ticket holder at West Ham. You know, look, my brothers are season ticket holders at West Ham. You also know what your fan base is like. Very, very loyal fan base that have high expectations of the style of football that they want to see, and B, getting and watching results. How many more home losses do you think that your fans are going to sort of take before they sort of turn on this guy?
I think if we don't beat Ipswich, mate, there could be some serious, not consequences, because I don't think they're sacking, but he could come under a lot of pressure. As I said, we've got Brentford Saturday, we've got Ipswich the week after at home. But once we come back from international, we've got Spurs away, Man United at home. Do you know what I mean? And at the moment, I said to my dad on Sunday, I just can't see where we're going to win our next game, and that's the God's honest truth. I really can't. With defending like that, that's the problem. If we score 4, we probably concede 5 at the moment. So, yeah, times ain't looking good, but I reckon he's got a couple of weeks, mate. If he loses against Ipswich at home, that fan base will turn quicker than a London bus.
So you haven't won at home yet, have you?
No. What I will say to you is, I did send you a thing earlier where TalkSport had some West Ham fans on who were already asking for him to be sacked. So,
yeah. That's what my concern is. That's what my concern is, because if you go into Christmas and you've only had 1, maybe 2 wins at home, I don't think it matters where you are in the league. I still think that fan base still turn on him.
Yeah, I do. I don't know. It's a bit of a tough one, isn't it? Because he's new. He has got to settle in. He has got 10 new signings that he needs to sort of gel together. But there's no time in the Premier League, is there? Let's be honest. I think Ten Hag's lucky to still be in a role, and he's been given time. But Man United ain't as bad as West Ham. So
I'm going to stick you on the spot right here, right now. 5 games in, Where do you think West Ham are finishing this year?
Oh, I still think they'll finish in the top 10. I generally do. But
I think that's fair enough.
as I said to you earlier, like we win Saturday, we go level on points with Spurs who are in 10th. We beat Ipswich the week after, we go up to 6th place. Do you know what I mean? That's how tight it is. It is tight, but the concern is defensively we're awful, and I just can't see us winning. I just can't see where our next win comes from. That's the problem. But
It
I
won't
still
quite work like that, though, does it? Because you're
no, of
talking
course
about
not.
points wise, and that
Of
means
course not.
everyone above you's got to lose. That's
Yeah,
the
of
thing.
course, 100%, 100%. Like, and for me, yeah, I still think we're finishing the top 10, but it just it don't look good at the minute. That's my honest opinion. No one wants a toxic London stadium. Fans will be putting corner flags in centre circles. Yeah, yeah, that was Burnley. I remember that. But yeah, no, look, I'm going to give the guy some time before we start calling for his. And I think it's 5 games in.
No, there's nothing. Listen, it's early days yet. No one should be talking about sacking managers at the moment at all. Full stop. You
Get me
know,
to
and
January and we'll see.
it's quite concerning the fact that there's 3 managers that are there's whispers around the place. You know, like the West Ham, there's whispers. You've obviously got Martin at Southampton's, there's whispers, and then they've got Sean Dyche being chucked under a bus. Like, I just think it's crazy this time of the year to be talking like about sacking managers. You know, I don't even think managers should be sacked before January, and I do understand the concept of sacking them because they're the next transfer window, but I always think that that's too soon. So I certainly don't expect to see a Premier League manager sacked in the near future. Not right now, no.
So we're coming towards the end of the show. What last thing I'm going to touch on is the potential, and I say potential, potential takeover at Everton. Obviously, the bid has been made for Everton Football Club. Ash, what do you make of that, mate? And do you think it'll bode Everton for good stead for future runnings?
I mean, we all know how dire the situation is at Everton. I think, I've seen multiple interviews with, the likes of Lampard, who obviously had a decent spell there, saying how bad and how rough it was, to try and manage the team, but also manage, the off-field issues. For Everton, they just need a little bit of direction and somebody to come in and sort of, whip around the changing room, whip around like what's happened with Ineos in terms of the people that are on their board. They need people that genuinely are going to obviously care about the club and get the situation that they're in out, get them out of that situation. But ultimately, if it's the case of Everton go down this year, like it could be a blessing in disguise to a certain degree, because they are a big club. Everybody knows they're a big club, but they might be not under the spotlight as much if they were to go down to the Championship, because they've been relegated from the Prem, which would hopefully give them enough resources and give them enough time to come back into the Prem. Obviously, we know the Championship's probably the toughest league to get out of, but I think with the direction of the board, they potentially could find their way back up to the Prem. But the only thing in regards to that is they have to improve their academy system, because I don't see enough players coming through their academy anymore, not considering the types of players that have come through their academy, the likes of Wayne Rooney, especially, even Ross Barkley. But they just don't breed the youngsters like the other Prem teams do anymore, and they are falling behind in terms of in their academy prospects.
Doc, what do you make of the potential takeover of Everton Football Club?
Well, first and foremost, I think this is a massive year for Everton, and I think it is make or break. I think if they go down, then I think Everton are in massive, massive trouble regardless. But with regards to this takeover bid, I think it's good for the club because it's going to bring more money in. But this deal stinks. Absolutely reeks. This is the same company that's already tried to buy them recently and it's fallen through. This is the same company that's lent them £200 million, has no involvement with the club, and are now talking about taking over the club again and using that £200 million loan to change it into shares. It stinks, man. It absolutely stinks.
Fair enough. I'm glad you was honest. So, guys, that wraps up tonight's show. Thank you, Ash, for joining us. Thank you, as always, Doc. Got one bit of information to let you guys know that on Thursday night, myself and Doc will be carrying out the London show, and we will be joined by a Arsenal fan. I'm not going to give away his name, but an Arsenal fan, and of course, our one and only Matty Kerr. That'll be 8:30 on Thursday on the Prime Premier League channel. If you hit the bell on the Prime Premier League channel, it will give you a notification every time we go live, and you will never miss out on a show. Thank you, gents. Have a good evening, and I'll catch you soon.